Hello and welcome to Life Central Online and Happy New Year.
Yes, it is January.
It is January. My name is Andy.
And I'm Laura.
And we are so pleased that you have chosen to join us today on the first Sunday in 2021.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
We've made it through Christmas. We hope you had an amazing Christmas. We hope you had incredible time with people around you and you were able to maybe connect with some people that you love that you haven't been able to see in the last few months as well. And we want to say thank you, don't we, to everybody who's helped out over the Christmas season.
Yeah.
So many different things.
Absolutely. Although this Christmas has been different, we've just been blown away by your responses. For those of you that have given out cards and pushed them through letterboxes, coloured in cards, bought presents for people, helped deliver food. You guys have just stepped up to the plate and we are so grateful, and just the reach that we've been able to have has been amazing. But now we're into 2021. There's some things we need to tell you about.
In fact, there are lots of things, aren't there?
Lots of things coming up.
Lots of things. So, first off, this Tuesday, we have Life Central Midweek at 8 o'clock, where Leon and Alison are going to be leading that through. And you want to make sure that you're tuning into that because we're going to be announcing our new series that's starting next Sunday. But you're going to need to check into Life Central Midweek to find out what that is. Yeah,
and the Life Central Midweek is going to kick off 3 days of prayer and fasting, and we really just believe we need to seek God and pray going into this new year. It's a situation that none of us are familiar with, but you know we really believe that we need to pray into that. And on Saturday morning we are going to be doing spiritual MOT. Leon is going to talk more about that in his talk, but if you want the details, you can click the links below in the chat and sign up for that. Please do get involved with those things.
Yeah, and then next Sunday it's back to normal, isn't it? It's all sort of Sunday services happening online they did. Also, the other thing we want to make sure is on your radar is on the 11th of January, we are starting our next Alpha course. So new year, new Alpha course, and it may well be that there are people that you sent the links to over Christmas that you want to touch base with and let them know that this is happening. You might have had some really exciting conversations off the back of Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, all sorts of different things. So make sure that you are maybe praying through and thinking through who you might want to bring or invite. Now, if you are wanting to invite someone, what we need you to do is we need you to send a text message. So you need to text
not who they're inviting, the person who wants to sign up for needs to send the text.
The person who wants to sign up needs to send the text. And in the text, just put LCC Alpha with your name to the number
60777.
Yes, between us, we got it. Woo!
We got it. So if it was me, it'd be LCC Alpha Andy Hancock, and send that to 60777. So please do that. If you want to sign up for Alpha, please go ahead and do that. And you know, as we go into a brand new year, we want to look back and reflect at what God has done and what God did in 2020, but we also want to begin to look forward, and we use this in our online experience. But this is a little bit of a highlight of what God did through the life of Life Central Church in 2020. Have a look.
this has been a year that we did not expect, but we have just seen that throughout that year, God has done so much in, through, with all of us. And this is who God is. This is the incredible thing about following such an amazing God, is that it's not about the season that we're in, but it's about the God that we follow and the certainty of his character. He is good, and so we can expect good things from him. And as we go into a time of worship now, we're going to continue with that theme, thanking God for not only what he has done, but also what he is going to do. So in a moment, Leon Evans, our senior pastor, is going to come and share a message. But we're going to spend a few moments worshiping and thanking God for the great things that he has done and he is going to do in this new year.
Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to 2021. Can you believe it? And we want to say from all of us here at Life Central to you and to your family, Happy New Year. Wherever and whenever you are watching this, we are so glad that you could connect with us. And as you can see from behind me, we haven't quite got around to putting the Christmas decorations down yet. Our trees are still up. They will go down very, very shortly. And I wonder whether you're like us and you've still got your decorations up. Maybe you want to put it in the chat today. Decorations up, decorations down, all packed away in a box ready for next year, or still up there kind of holding on to the whole Christmas feeling. But you know, on this first Sunday in 2021, I want to just say it is so good to connect with you. And I just want for the next 20 minutes or so just to share a few thoughts, looking back and looking forward. And I've called this 2021, Taking Control and How. And I want you to hang with me, okay? Because I think I've got something really important to share with you guys today. Whether you're part of Life Central Church or whether you're not, you are really welcome. And we hope this helps you at the start of this new year. How do you summarize 2020? What will your abiding memories of 2020 be? You know, I think for me, I've learned such a lot through 2020. It's like I was saying to one of our techie guys just the other day, it's almost like I've got a new language at the end of 2020 than I had at the start of it. You know, at the start of 2020, I wasn't talking about VTs and cutaways and autofocus and all this kind of stuff. You see, because what we've done is we've learned to pivot, we've learned to be agile, we've learned to adapt so that we can communicate and we can connect with people in a virtual space. And I want to say our tech team and our musicians have done such a phenomenal job during 2020 at learning and adapting. It's been so amazing for me to walk into a room and see a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old operating the cameras, and some 60-year-olds operating the cameras as well. But you know what? With all of the skill that they've got, it hasn't always gone to plan. Take a look at this.
Sorry, all hell has broken loose here. Oh, there's milk everywhere.
On the last series of what to do when you don't know what to do, I think you might have just seen my husband crawl behind me actually. So that's very unsubtle. He won't be doing that again during
First day at
Num 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 num. Num 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 num.
learning about people that have bleh. And whether you've heard that story, bleh. Say everyone must bleh. No. Bleh. 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 Bleh.
You are the miracle worker, that you are the May waker, that you never stop working, that you're always working, Lord, to...
I'm a red and white mushroom. I'm a red and white mushroom.
Are you filming? Yeah. In meeting.
I genuinely don't know what this is. Magnesium? Ready for a night in Broad Street?
Ow.
Welcome to OM.
Stuck.
But the very next day, you get it away.
As you can see, it doesn't always go to plan. But what will the lessons be that you'll take with you into 2021 from 2020? See, for me, there's lots of lessons for me. One of them is that tracky bottoms don't really suit me. And the other one is I never thought that putting the bins out would be such an exciting thing to do. At least it got me out of the house and put proper shoes on. Or you know, going and doing the big shop at Asda would be such a monumentous occasion. And there are lots of things that we learned during 2020. But I want to be really honest with you today. One of the big lessons I learned was this. I like control more than I'd like to admit. I mean, I'm a leader, I'm a strategist, I'm futuristic, I'm a visionary. I love to plan, I love to strategize, I love to think what happens next. And during 2020, God did some really deep work in me when I had to realize that actually my ability to influence, my ability to lead, my ability to plan was actually taken away from me in so many ways. And control is a little bit like certainty. You see, we lost that sense of certainty, but actually what we really lost wasn't the sense of it, we lost the illusion of it. You see, certainty is an illusion and control is an illusion as well. And the big idea that I want us to take into 2021 is this. Take control of what you should, but surrender control of what you can't. Take control of what you should and surrender control of what you can't. And I would say that's the biggest lesson that I learned through 2020. And I really want to take that with me into 2021 because I don't know what 2021 has in store for me, and neither do you, and neither does our world. And I want to just look for a moment at one of the central characters, maybe not the central character, because the central character is Jesus, but the other central character in the Christmas story, and that's Mary. And when you look at Mary's life, and I want to do a little bit of a guide through her life this morning or today, and you know, as you look through her life, she had to come to the point where actually there was very little that she had control over, but what she did have control over, she took it. She took that control over what she should, but she surrendered control of what she couldn't. So I want you to just come with me for a moment to the flip chart, and I want to just tell you a little bit about Mary's story. So Mary's story begins as a girl, okay? And if you like, she's a young girl growing up, and as a teenager she falls in love with a boy, and that's all up, and it's great, and it's going all great, and they're getting close, and one day Joseph proposes to her to be engaged and to be married. She says yes. That's a real high point, but it kind of gets higher because then she gets visited by an angel. That's pretty good, isn't it? That's like a pretty high point in your life. But then the angel says that you, Mary, are going to be pregnant, and it's not, your father's not going to be Joseph, it's going to be God, which is a little bit of a high point, but then it's a little bit scary because now she has to tell Joseph. She tells Joseph it's a disgrace in their culture for her to have a child out of wedlock, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. But then Joseph decides he has a dream, an encounter with God, and he says he's going to take Mary, so her life is on the up. And then they're starting to get ready for the arrival of the baby, and Joseph's saying, hey, I'm going to look after the baby, it's all good, all good. And then there's a census, and then they travel to Bethlehem, and they're traveling on a donkey. That's not great. They get to the inn. There's no room at the inn. They have to go out in the back in almost like a stable. But then there's a baby born, and the baby's great. The shepherds come. The wise men come. It's all good. And then they get news that King Herod knows about the coming of a Messiah, of a child, and he's out to get this baby. So then they have to flee, and they flee right down to Egypt, where they stay, and then where they come back, and then they start to raise the lad as their own. It's all good. It's all good. At the age of 12, they're in Jerusalem, and they lose their son. Can you imagine losing your son in a city? I remember we lost my sister in London. In fact, we lost her in London. We lost her in Blackpool. We just couldn't get rid of it. No, I'm joking. We lost her in London. We lost her in Blackpool. Losing your child in the middle of a big city is incredibly traumatic. But then they found Jesus. He was in the temple. All good, all good. He's growing. And then at the age of 30, Mary has to kind of surrender again her son as he begins his life as a rabbi. And she watches him teach. She watches him do miracles. Incredible. But then the crowds begin to turn against him. And then Mary, that mother, and you know what? When your kids are grown up, you're still a mom, aren't you? You're still a dad. Even when they're grown up, like I'm a granddad now, and I know what that's like. And Mary has to watch as her son is taken, as he's tried, as he's beaten, as he's whipped, as he's crucified, the lowest point in her life. But then 3 days later, she sees Jesus rise again. And Jesus is who the angel back here said he would be. That's Mary's life. Guys, that's your life. And that's my life. It's basically a series of ups and downs. Isn't that like 2020? I mean, isn't this like 2020? It really is, isn't it? It was just a series of ups and downs. I remember at the start of 2020, like I was so excited. It was like the biggest year of growth that we'd had as a church. And we were beginning to think about and dream about planting other locations and reaching more people. And it was all good. And then COVID hit. But then God did some things, and then other things happened. And basically your whole life, any year you could say, is a series of ups and downs. And here's the truth. Mary had very little control over much of what happened to her. And so she had to surrender what she couldn't control. But there are some things that Mary had control over, and those are the things that we should control. And that's what I want to share with you as we head into 2021. So, what can we take control of? What should we actually take control of as we head into 2021? And I've kind of thought about it in a little acrostic, okay? And I think this is original to me. I've never read this anywhere else. But basically, what we have control over is our arc. And by arc, I mean our attitude, our responses, and our choices. We have control over our attitude, our response to what happens, and over the choices that we make. Let's look a little bit at the story in Luke chapter 1, verse 26 to 35, and then we'll add in verse 38. And it says this: in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. The virgin's name was Mary. The angel went to her and said, "Greetings, you who are highly favored." Can you imagine? This is a teenage girl, an unmarried teenage girl, and the angel says, "You're highly favored. The Lord is with you." Incredible words. Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. But the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God." I wonder whether Mary thought, what have I done? I mean, she hasn't done anything, really. And yet, I think God's looking not just at what she's done, but God is looking at the quality of her heart and of her character. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great, and he will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end. "How will this be?" Mary asked the angel, "since I am a virgin?" The angel answered, "The Holy Spirit will come on you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. So the Holy One to be born will be called the Son of God." And then in verse 38, "I am the Lord's servant," Mary answered. "May your word to me be fulfilled." In other translations it says, "Let it be to me according to your word." Then the angel left her. Just in this little passage, you see something about Mary. You see that she took control over her arc, over her attitude, her responses, and her choices. Her attitude was this: I don't understand this. She says, "How will this be? I don't get it." And in the original language, the way that's phrased, it's like she thought about it logically. That's what it meant. She tried to work it out logically, and she couldn't work it out. But her attitude was, I can't work it out, but it will be because God has said it. It's really interesting that Mary's cousin Elizabeth, they also, Zechariah and Elizabeth, get visited by an angel, and they're an older couple, and the angel said to Zechariah, "You're going to have a child as well." And Zechariah asked the how question. And when he asked the how question, the angel struck him dumb for 9 months. But when Mary asked the how question, the angel said, "You're highly favored." And if you look at that, you think, well, they both asked how. One is struck dumb and one is highly favored. But they ask it differently. Zechariah said, "How can this be?" Mary said, "How will this be?" Both of them don't know how it will be, but their attitude is different. Mary is saying, "I don't get it, but I trust you." And guys, I want to say to you, in 2021, as we move into a new year, can we have an attitude that says, "God, I don't understand everything that's happening. I don't understand what's happening to me. I don't understand what's happening around me, but I know that you are here and I know that you are for me." So not just how can, but how will this be? And her response then is she surrenders control because she can't control it anyway. So she basically says, "Let it be to me according to your word." Or, "I am the Lord's servant. May your word be to me fulfilled." In other words, my response is I surrender. And I've had to learn a lot through 2020. And I've been a Christian a long time and a Christian leader for a long time. That actually I have to take control of what I should, but I have to surrender control of what I can't. And I think for me, 2020 has been a whole year of taking control and surrendering, of giving and taking. And I think that's the same for all of us in 2021. And then a choice is of this: I choose to serve you, God, no matter what happens to me. And Mary had many, many low points in her life. many points that was difficult as she watched her son, as she watched her son go through difficult situations, as she watched her son go through the most painful situation of all, which was his own death. I think as she looked at the cross, I can imagine her thinking about, as a teenage girl, with the angel speaking to her and saying, this is what's going to happen. And she may be so like, wow, that's amazing. Now as she's looking at her son on the cross, she has to take control over her arc, her attitude, her responses, and her choices. And guys, no matter what kind of year 2020 was for you, 2021 kind of gives you the same kind of challenge. Will you take control over what you should and surrender control of what you can't? How do we strengthen our arc? So what I want to do in these last few minutes together is I want to give you 4 ways that you can strengthen your arc as we go into 2021. 4 ways that you can strengthen your attitude, your response, and your choices as you and I will hit the ups and downs of life through this year. Number 1, establish a healthy rule of life. What do I mean by rule of life? Rule of life is a phrase that the ancient kind of church fathers and church leaders phrase that rule of life. It's basically, it's how am I going to live my life? It's a set of practices and relational rhythms that create space so that you encounter Jesus, so that you become like Jesus, and so that you act like Jesus to our world. It's, in other words, that's what you can take control over. You can take control over the rhythm of your life. I've learned through 2020, and I wasn't great at this, and I had to learn the hard way that it was very easy for me to say, oh no, I can't do that because I'm so busy, or this happened, or it's almost like I was surrendering control of my diary. And I should never surrender control of my diary, because my diary isn't something I surrender to. It's something that should surrender to me. In other words, I should take control over my schedule. And a rule of life is when we align what we do with our values. And you and I have complete control over that. And one of the quotes I used during 2020, if you might remember, was a quote from The Lord of the Rings when Bilbo Baggins said this: I feel all thin, sort of stretched like butter that has been scraped over too much bread. And I've never known exhaustion like I knew in 2020. Physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. But as I look back, I know that those times of exhaustion often coincided when my schedule, when my rhythms, when my rule of life was out of balance. And I had to learn to take that back. And as we go into 2021, I'm working on establishing a healthy rule of life for this year. So for me, these are the 7 things that I want to commit to this year. And you need to do your own. But for me, I am committed to a daily focused time with Jesus. Remember at the start of the pandemic, I said this: don't start your day with the news. Don't finish your day with the news. Start your day with Jesus and end your day with Jesus. And I'm committed to a daily focused time with Jesus. I'm also committed to a daily awareness of the presence of Jesus. I want to pause. I want to reflect. I want to listen to God as I go about what I do on the day. I love this quote from Craig Groeschel. Prayer reminds us we are not in control and keeps us close to the one who is. Thirdly, I want to commit to a weekly Sabbath. In other words, a day off. And again, I've not been great at this. I love what I do. I love working. I love leading. I love serving you guys as a church. I love telling people about Jesus. And I've always found it quite hard to stop. And a metaphor that's been helpful to me in 2020 is this: I can park the car, but is the engine still running? And actually, Sabbath, or a day of rest, is God's gift to me. But here's the thing, that when I unplug, when I switch off the engine, when I rest, that word rest is if you're thinking about the biggest sense of that word, is about restore. You see, it says in Psalm 23, it doesn't say that God rests our souls. It says that God restores our soul. And I know that my attitude, my response, and my choices will be strengthened when I rest and when I allow God to restore me. The fourth one for me, a rule of life, is I want to commit to a weekly gathering with other spiritual travelers. In other words, I want to commit weekly to gathering together as church. Now, I know that's been really hard through 2020 when most of us, it's been virtual. but I want to commit to a virtual gathering as much as I want to commit to a physical gathering. And you are in control over that commitment. I also, number 5, want to commit to a yearly retreat or reflection space. I'm going to just say here, we're going to provide something for you in just a few days' time. So this Saturday, the 9th of January, we have a 2-hour or so Zoom personal MOT. I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit at the end. But I want to really encourage you to sign up for that via our website. We used to run this years ago in the room, in person. Now we're going to run it virtually. It's been one of the most productive and effective things we've ever done. It allows you to look back over 2020, to reflect, to capture some learnings, and then to begin to pray and goal set for 2021. This is about you taking control of what you should and surrendering control of what you can't. So important. For me, I also want to commit to a percentage giving of my finance to the work of God. You know, as the economy is in trouble, as prices might soar, as many of us are struggling with money, I want to commit in the middle of all that to a percentage giving of my finances back to God, because they're not my finances anyway, they're His. And I want to put first things first, and I want to honor Him with my money. And then finally, I commit to a passion to see others experience Jesus for themselves this year. I long for others to come into a relationship with Jesus, not just because that's what I do for a living, but because that's how I want to live my life. So guys, I want to encourage you. What could you do in these next few days? Maybe on the personal MOT this Saturday, maybe you could say in that space, give up a Saturday morning to say in that Saturday morning, I want to establish a healthy rule of life, because that will strengthen your arc, your attitude, your responses, and your choices. Secondly, the second thing that's going to strengthen your arc is this: refuse to do life alone. We all discovered, didn't we, during 2020, how important relationships are. We all discovered how much we miss people, how much we miss connecting with people. And we all discovered creative, innovative, new ways to connect relationally. It's so important. Harvard University have been doing a study on relationships over 75 years now. They've been doing it. They've been tracking a group of around 700 people, some of them from a wealthy community in Harvard, others from a very poor community in Boston. And regardless of the community that they were brought up in and raised in, the study has discovered this one thing: the single biggest factor in keeping us healthier and happier is the quality of our relationships. Guys, we are wired for community. We are wired for relationships. I know when I look back on 2020, when my arc was strengthened, when my attitude was good, when my responses were good, when my choices were good, often it was because I was investing in great relationships. You know, it leads to a greater sense of well-being, and it indicates that you live longer. People actually live longer when they're in healthy, life-giving relationships. The brain feels secure, and the memory declines at a slower rate. Can you imagine that? And it's not just any relationships, but it's having good, healthy, life-giving relationships are so important. And this is wisdom as old as the hills. It says in the Bible, in the book of Proverbs, chapter 13, verse 20, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. So who are you drinking coffee with as you move into 2021? Who are you hanging around with? Who are you doing life with? You know, because if you do life with life-giving people, it will lift you up. You see, if you do it with people that drain you, it will pull you down. Now, there's a balance here. We need to invest in other people. We need to give and we need to serve. But we also need to make sure that there are people in our life that are good for us and that are wise for us, and that help, because that will strengthen our attitude, our response, and our choices. Guys, in this church, small groups are so important. As we call them, connect groups. And we've all discovered during 2020 how important our connect groups are. If you're not in a connect group, I want to encourage you, go to the website today. Go to the website today and fill in the next steps card and ask to join a connect group. And you might say, oh yeah, that's fine, but you know, we're still doing it on Zoom and I'm fed up of Zoom. Listen. I love you more than I don't love Zoom. And I need you more than I don't love Zoom. So in other words, even if it is Zoom, the relationship that enables us to have is more important than my like or my dislike or my frustration with Zoom or with technology. We have to prioritize relationships. You want to strengthen your ark, you want to take control in 2021 of what you should, then commit and say, I refuse in 2021 to do life alone. You are not meant to do life alone. So important. Number 3, grieve your losses. Grieve your losses. Guys, I've discovered during 2020, as we went into lockdown number 1 in March, my mother had just died, as many of you know. In fact, we did the funeral just 3 days before lockdown. And I know that as Mom died and we did the funeral, I know that as we then went into lockdown, I know I didn't grieve my loss. I know I found it hard to grieve because all of a sudden, we're leading in a pandemic and as a leader, I'm trying to help other people. And I knew it was the summer really that God spoke to me and said, Leon, you're not grieving your losses. And I went away for a few days on my own and began to grieve my losses. And I realized that actually my losses that I was grieving, it wasn't just my mom. There were other losses as well. The loss of relationship, the loss of plans and dreams and things that I felt God had put in my heart. And I want to say to you, life is a series of grieved or ungrieved losses. And if we want to strengthen our attitude and we want to strengthen our response and we want to strengthen our choices, we've got to learn to grieve our losses. Mary presents Jesus in the temple a few days after he's born, and Simeon takes Jesus in his arms. But then Simeon says to Mary, and a sword will pierce your own heart too. And that's a little nod to the future that, Mary, in all of the euphoria of having this baby child now, there's going to be some sorrow in your life. And that's a little nod to the future and what happens when Jesus is crucified. And you can just imagine the pain that Mary as a mother felt as she looked. And the reality is that we can't guard ourselves against pain. But what we can do is we can grieve our losses when they come. And I don't know for you or for me or for us what 2021 will bring. But there will be some losses in 2021. Some of you have lost loved ones this last year. Some of you have lost jobs. Some of you have lost relationships. Some of you have lost holidays. Some of you have lost celebrations. Some of you kids and teenagers, you've lost rites of passages at school and college and university. Grieve those losses. When we hold on to them as pain, then that pain begins to take control of us. But when we deal with that pain, when we grieve those losses, then we take control over what we should and we surrender control of what we can't. Every loss brings with it a measure of grief. What we want to do is we want to dull or kill pain. But pain is not meant to be killed or dulled. It's meant to be grieved. It's meant to be surrendered. All of this is in your control. Strengthen your ark. Grieve your losses. So, as we draw to a close, establish a healthy rule of life. Refuse to do life alone. Grieve your losses. And then finally, and maybe this is the biggest one of all, count your blessings. It's a really old phrase, isn't it? That old song, count your blessings. What does it do? It says, name them one by one. How many of us have learned the importance of this during this last year, 2020? Let's not lose it as we head into 2021. This may be the single biggest factor that will strengthen your ark. I love this verse in Psalm 103, verse 1 and 2 from the Message. It says, "Oh, my soul, bless God. From head to toe, I'll bless his holy name. Oh, my soul, bless God. Don't forget a single blessing." Don't forget a single blessing. And I know that as I look back over 2020, in the ups and the downs of that year, the times when my ark was strengthened, when my attitude, my response and my choice was strengthened, was not when I looked at what I didn't have. It was not when I looked at what I'd lost. But it was when I looked and when I counted and when I was grateful for what I did have and for what God was doing in my life. When I count my blessings, my attitude gets better, my response gets better, and my choices get better. So, Here's some application questions for you at the start of 2021, and they'll come up on the screen. Maybe you want to take a screenshot of them, or maybe we'll just hold on to them on the screen for a moment. But let me just give you these 4 questions, and maybe this will help you as you move through this first week of January. And you know, in this week of January, we are going to give you some opportunity to connect and to do some reflection and some planning work. So on Tuesday night, we have Life Central midweek at 8 o'clock when Alison and myself will be talking about this a little bit longer. On Wednesday to Friday, we have those 3 days of prayer and fasting. And then on Saturday, the 9th of January, the personal MOT. Some great opportunities during this week to rest, to reflect, to think, and then to take control of what we should, and then to surrender control of what we can't. So here's 4 application questions for you. Number 1, if I were to write down my rule of life, what might it look like? If I were to write down my rule of life for 2021, what might it look like? I gave you the 7 things for me. What would your things be? Maybe it's less than that. Maybe it's more. What would your rule of life look like? Number 2, how can I deepen my relational life this year? You know, some of you guys in Connect groups, you stopped going. You stopped going during 2020. I want to ask you today, make a decision that you're going to go back in. Some of you are not in a small group. You've not joined, I don't do groups. Hey, that's fine. I get that. But you know, in the I don't do groups, let's not lose sight of the fact that we are created for relationship. And it's not just about what you do or don't do. It's also about what you bring to other people and what you bring to the group. And also I want to say, it's not just about turning up. It's about investing. It's about asking the second question. It's about taking that risk like we've talked about during this last year. So how can I deepen my relational life this year? Number 3. What are the losses I've not allowed myself to grieve? And maybe you've carried loss and pain during this last year. And at the start of this new year, could you bring those to God? And could you say, God, I don't want to carry these. I want to surrender them to you. And finally, number 4, can I try to count my blessings every single day in 2021? What would it look like as you wake every morning to start your day with Jesus and say, hey, as I read a little bit of the Bible, as I pray a bit for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, I want to start my day by counting my blessings and just naming them. Maybe I want to end my day, but maybe it's been a great day, maybe it's been a terrible day, but as I end this day, I want to end this day with gratitude and thankfulness. And when you do that, when you start and end your day with counting your blessings, it will strengthen your arc. It will strengthen your attitude and your response and your choice. You will take control of what you should, and then you can surrender control of what you can't. Guys, as we finish, we're going to sing a song together, and I want to encourage you whenever you're watching this to really engage with this song. This has become a really important song to me, and I know to many people. In fact, this was a song get emotional again. This was a song that we used at my mom's funeral way back in March last year. But this has become a powerful song for many of us during 2020 because it talks about the goodness of God. And it talks about the fact that in the ups and downs of life that Mary experienced, that we all experienced in 2020, that we all experience every single year of our life. In the ups and downs, God is faithful and God never leaves us. And as we sing this song, I want to encourage you to begin to maybe take control of what you should and surrender control of what you can't. And after this song, I want to come back and just pray for you and say one more thing, and then we're done. Let's encounter God. Let's worship Him, and let's thank Him for His goodness. Regardless of what will happen in 2021, God is, will be, always will be good. Let's sing together.
Been held in your hand from the moment of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, your goodness is running out, it's running out to me. Your goodness is running out, it's running out to me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running out, it's running out to me. Your goodness is running out to me. Your goodness is running out, it's running out to me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running out, it's running out to me. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of
I love that song so much. And guys, right now, I want to just pray for you. And maybe at the start of this new year, maybe you are a little bit fearful. You know, you look back at 2020 and you think, wow, I mean, might it even get worse and all of that. And as you start on going into a new year, maybe you are concerned, and maybe there's stuff that you're carrying right now that you want to surrender to God. You know, we would love to pray for you at the start of this year. On the screen now is coming a link to our website, to our Say One For Me response, where we've got a whole prayer team, and we pray by name for you guys. In fact, we've prayed for nearly 100 people who've sent in messages over these last few months, and we would love to pray for you today. But let me just pray for you in this moment. Jesus, I want to thank you so much for the fact that no matter what we go through, we don't go through it alone. Emmanuel, God with us. Christmas reminds us that you came and that you are here. Hope is here. And regardless of what happens in 2021, we can know that you will walk through it with us. And so, Lord, I want to pray for every single person watching or listening to this, whenever, wherever they're watching it. May they and their family know that you are with them through the ups and downs of life. And Lord, help us to take control over what we should and surrender control over what we can't to the one who is always in control. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Guys, God bless you so much. I would also want to say thank you for your faithful giving to us during 2020. You haven't given to us, actually. You've been giving to God through the life of the church. And again, on the screen now will come a response for you of how you can give financially into the work of the church. You know, as we go into 2021, we're going to share a little bit more with you on Tuesday night at Life Central midweek. Alison and myself will share our heart with you a little bit as we head into this new year. You know, we are excited and we are optimistic about what God wants to do and about what God is doing and what God will do in and through us as a church. But you know, the most important thing isn't all of that. The most important thing is that we put first things first and we get our relationship with God right. That we establish that healthy rule of life, that we refuse to do life alone, that we grieve our losses, and then that we count our blessings. And so that's why this week has been set aside to help you and I and us to connect with God. So I want to really encourage you guys, do all you can to connect Tuesday night, and then we'll put out some resources for Wednesday through Friday, and it'd be great to see loads of people signed up for the personal MOT. This is how you can sign up. Again, this is coming up on the screen as well, how you can sign up for the personal MOT. It's a guided, reflective, it's going to be like 2-hour-long sessions with a coffee break in the middle, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be interactive, but it's going to be really powerful for you, so that you at the start of this year can take control over what you should and surrender control over what you can't. Guys, it's just an honor and a privilege to lead you and to be part of this incredible community called Life Central Church. And we want to say, on behalf of the elders and the staff, we love you guys. We're with you. We're for you. Take care. Happy New Year. And we will see you soon. God bless you.